Data visualization is an extremely important part of your marketing activities. Whenever you are presenting your efforts to any stakeholder, be it the client or to your manager or to your boss, you have to carry out really nice data visualizations. And one of the best tools for data visualizations for marketers is Looker Studio. So you can use Looker Studio in multiple ways. And one of the best ways of using Looker Studios is really to get all the data together from different sources, be it Google Ads, Google Analytics, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads. So this is actually possible through a process called blending. So first you have to get the data from these different sources. And in order to do that, you can actually use third-party tools. Supermetrics is the most commonly used and is highly recommended. This, by the way, is not in any way promoting Supermetrics, but this is something that I've learned from experience that it's a very useful tool. But this video is actually not going to be about Supermetrics. I'm going to be using good old Google Sheets, okay, in order to pull data from a couple of sources, and we're going to actually pretend that it's going to be doing that. So you can just download the data or you can automate the process, but this is not going to be about that. This is going to be about blending data from multiple sources within Looker Studio, and we're going to look at a couple of things, couple of issues that might arise, which are of a lot of interest, I would say, and also slightly challenging and tricky that arise while you're doing data blending within Looker Studio. When pulling data from Google Sheets, whatever be the sources of the data. And these two things happen to be, number one, what type of join you should use. And if you already have tried this, you would know what I'm talking about. And of course, if you're familiar with SQL or SQL, you would know that joins are actually very commonly used term and very important part of the SQL spectrum. And it is actually useful here within Looker Studio as well. And the second thing that's of importance is when you're using any kind of calculated metrics, there's a tricky situation that might arise that is actually very difficult to resolve, and I'll just make you familiar with the problem. I will talk about alternative ways of dealing with that as well in my future videos. In this video, we're going to be presenting the problem, and we're going to also see what are the basics of actually carrying out the data blending process. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. So like I said, I'm not going to be actually pulling in the data from the two sources. So here's one Google Sheet that I'm looking at, which is called Looker 1, and here's another sheet which is called Looker 2. And as you can see here, they've got very similar data. They've got campaign and cost and revenue. Obviously, the data is different, and they've got data actually for a couple of sources here. A couple of campaigns here. So campaign A and B and campaign A and B here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into Looker Studio, and our objective is just to recap quickly, is to get the data from these two Google Sheets. Just pretend for now that this data is coming from Google Ads. This one is coming, say, from Facebook Ads. Of course, Google Ads has got its own native integration, but just imagine that these are two third-party sources which are other than Google Ads and Google Analytics, the two which actually can be analyzed, or the data can be pulled into Looker Studio natively. So anything other than that, anything other than that, two such sources have got the data. We have got the data from them in Google Sheets, and these are the two sources. So let's pretend that's the case, and we're just going to look at the blending process and the couple of issues that I just talked about. So once within Looker Studio, you just have to connect the data sources, and I'll just show you the process. So this is the first table that I actually did, and within this table, the first thing that I did was to set up the data source. As you can see here, it's Looker 1 sheet 1, and if I just jump into it, you'll see that the dimensions are here. So by the way, this is not correct, right? I mean, these are supposed to be metrics. You can actually change that. You can add fields or you can edit it. But even though cost and revenue is actually under dimensions here, you can change them within your actual operational area. So don't worry about that. When pulling in the data, oftentimes you'll see Looker Studio does this mistake. It will not correctly identify dimensions and metrics. Most frequently, it does. What it does is the mistake it the mistake it makes is that it recognizes dimensions correctly, but metrics it also recognizes as dimensions. So I'll just jump out of it now. So this section is finished. So once I pulled in this data from lookup 1, as you can see here, this is that particular data, A and B, cost being 200 and 100 and 800 and 900 as the revenue. I'll jump into the second one and I'll just show you that this was pulled from the second Looker Studio, or rather the second Google Sheet, and the similar sort of data structure will be present here. So that part is done then. So now comes the blending part. So we have got the two tables. You can do all kinds of visualizations here. So this is not a visualization video or tutorial by any means. This is just the data pulling part and getting the data together and manipulating the data and actually finding out information from it, new information which wasn't there. So you would have guessed it right, that's using calculated metrics. So what is happening in this table? So this is the first case of blended data, and I'll just I'll just show you what has been happening here. So first of all, as you can see, there are a number of metrics here. Let's look at the outcome first. So we have cost table 1, revenue table 1, cost table 2, revenue table 2, as is the case here, right? And you also have sum of cost, sum of revenue, and the ROAS. So the sum of cost is actually going to be campaign wise. So when we look at this, for instance, if we just increase the width of the table here, so it just gives you some trouble from time to time. But if you just look at the the columns, you'll see this is the sum of cost, and if you look at this one, it is the sum of revenue, as you can see. So there you go. So these are the columns that have been generated. So let's first look at how these two were blended together in this particular table. So just understand that this is one table within which the two sources of data have been combined. So if I just edit this particular data source in I just edit this particular table, you'll see that this is a blended data. Okay, and you will see that the first table is the Looker 1 sheet and the second table is the Looker 2 sheet. And for this in this case, it's a campaign, which is the dimension, and cost and revenue are the metrics, and similarly the dimension is campaign, and cost and revenue are the metrics. So these two tables have been joined together. So what is the joining criterion? What is the blending condition? So this is that particular section. And by the way, this is where the output is going to show as to what are the blended data that's ultimately going to go in our blended table. So let's look at the condition now, and this is where the join configuration comes into the picture that I just spoke of at the start of the video. So there are multiple join operators, and these are all based on very, very similar. If you're familiar with concepts like Venn diagrams or SQL, so you'll understand what's really going on here. Even without understanding SQL or SQL, you can actually understand it using the concept of set theory or Venn diagrams. That left outer is actually, and in fact, I'll just jump into this document here, which will explain each of these cases. And this particular hypothetical example, by the way, I generated from ChatGPT. So you can understand, how all the things are working together and how AI is also helping marketers. So nothing to be afraid of AI at all. So this example generated from ChatGPT actually gives us all those instances of the join operators that are going on behind the scenes. Or not really behind the scenes, just right there in front of you. You just have to choose the right join operator that is suitable for you, okay, depending on your data set. So you have a couple of tables here. For instance, you have customer ID and customer name, and then you have another table, the first one being named customers, another one named orders. As you can see, order ID, customer ID, and amount. As you can see, the customer ID is the common or the key column here. So the column that's going to be the basis for joining these tables together, all right? These two tables being joined. So if I look at the inner join first, you'll see that it returns customers who have orders. So this clearly means that it's only going to look at the columns which are the rows rather which are common in the customer ID column. So 1 and 2 are the only rows which are actually common to both of the tables, right? So everything from the the common the rows from these two common rows from the customer ID column from both the tables will actually be fetched into this table. Okay, so the output table for inner join looks like this. The left join is the one where all the rows will actually be populated from the left table. So this one. So all the customers, as you can see, 1, 2, and 3. 4, by the way, is not here because it's not there with with the first table, and therefore that is not there. But the third one was missing in table B, as you can see, the third row. But it has taken the value from table A, but it's going to return null values because for the columns which were there in table B but not in table A, right? And that's why they will obviously not have any corresponding values, but they will be pulled because that's how left join works. And just the opposite is the right join, where you actually do it on the basis of the column that is on the basis of the common column from the right table's perspective, and gets everything from the right table. So you can see here towards the right everything is going to be there, but it's for the table A's case, which is actually missing in table A, the row, but is there in table B, those will be having null values. And for the full join, you will actually have everything pulled together based on the common primary key or the common column, and wherever the null values occur, whether in table A or table B rows, they will be there within the final output. So this is the full outer join, and again something that is that is really useful in certain cases. So it depends what your data is really like, if you are going to have null values or not. If you don't have null values, you can actually use full join, for instance, full outer join, because you have nothing to lose there. It's not going to, and if it's not too many rows that we're talking about, if it's not too many columns that we're talking about, then you can definitely use the full outer join. So these these are the basics, and this is the basic concept that is going on behind the join configuration that's working here in Looker Studio. So once that's done, you have to choose which of the columns that you're going to use the join condition upon. So I have chosen left outer here, for instance. I could have gone with full outer. As I said, there are no null values here, so it wouldn't have made a difference. So campaign table, campaign in both the tables basically is the common column, the primary key column, and that has been chosen here. So this is the blended data. Looks like do not select the hide repeated join fields because there might be common field names, and these will be missing. So it's going to cause problems. You're not going to get all of the columns, all of the rows actually. So if I just hit so these are obviously there which are getting blended from the two tables. And if I just jump into sum of cost now, so sum of cost is a simple number data type. So this is a calculated metric, and I'm just simply summing up the two costs, right, from the two tables. And this is an aggregation of sum. So that's simple, that's simple as that. So you can see here in this part, when you hover your mouse over the data type part, you'll see something called FX appear, and an edit button appear. And this means that whenever the FX is appearing, it's actually a calculated metric, and whenever there's this pencil or the edit button and edit symbol, it means that it's an inbuilt metric. So there you go. I mean, if you just do the same thing for sum of revenue, you'll see that it's just the sum of the two revenues, and in aggregation it's just sum. And now comes the ROAS. So I want to calculate the ROAS as well, and this was never there in the two tables, right? So this is a calculated metric, and do understand that this is going to be calculated on each of the tables. So if I just hit the edit here on the ROAS, you'll see that what I've simply done is it's revenue table 1 plus revenue table 2 divided by the cost table 1 and cost table 2, and the aggregation is average, right, in this case. So this is basically it, how you do the blending. I've explained the joining part, and I've also shown the calculated metric after the blending has been done. As you can see, this is calculated metric on blended information, on blended metrics, because the ROAS was calculated on two blended metrics, right? The sum of cost and sum of revenue are blended metrics. So now I'm going to also show you something else. So suppose I don't want it campaign wise, and I want to just do a summary row, okay? And you can actually select a summary row here. So if I just select this particular table and I scroll down, sometimes Looker Studio can be really slow, but yeah, if I just jump into this section and I just click show summary row here, so there you go. You're going to get a summary row here, okay? The problem with Looker Studio's calculation of the summary row is that it actually calculates average. So this is particular, this is absolutely correct, right? So some of these two revenues is 1100, or some of these costs rather, some of these two revenues is 2500. So if I just jump into another table that I just created here, and you'll see that the total cost has been calculated irrespective of the campaigns. So this is the total cost across campaigns. Okay, so it's 300 plus 800, which is 1100, and total revenue, which is 1700 plus 2500, which is 4200, right? So that part is correct. But when you actually try to calculate the ROAS from here, you'll see if I just jump into total ROAS, which is obviously another calculated metric based on blended metrics. So it's again the similar sort of formula where I've just summed up the revenues and the costs, and I have taken the aggregation as average. So this is the same one as was there in the summary row. If we just jump into this one, you'll see that it's 3.96. If you actually do the simple math here of dividing 4200 by 1100, you can actually see it that it's going to be different. So if I just jump into this one, this calculator here, just a second, 4200 by 1100, it's actually 3.81. So it's different from 3.96, obviously, because it's not taking the right average. It's taking the average of the individual cases. So just wanted to point out that when you're doing calculated metrics, when you are calculating or creating the calculated metrics on Looker Studio, in fact, not just for blended data, just be a little bit careful. There might be some errors and you might have to troubleshoot that. I just wanted to point out these things, and there are actually ways to tackle this. But yeah, Looker Studio does come with this set of problems. But this is how the blending works, and like I said, you can just get the data in a couple of Google Sheets if you don't want to use Supermetrics. Maybe the client or the project does not allow that kind of budget. If that's the case, or maybe there's an issue of some other kind because of which you cannot use Supermetrics or a tool like that, then you can always just pull in the data manually. There are ways to automate that process, by the way, to get the data manually into Google Sheets from the different ads platforms. You can use APIs for that. There are also tools for doing that as well. But once you have got the data into the Google Sheets, then you can actually blend the data within Looker Studio. So hope this was useful. I've explained joins as well. If you have any question on any of these aspects, if you have any specific project where you have gotten stuck with certain aspects while doing the reporting, and you need some help or you need some guidance regarding that, do reach out to me or do comment. And if you have liked the video, well, do like, share, and subscribe, like I always say. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.